All right, the meeting will come to order. This is a special meeting of the Civilian Oversight Commission. Can you hear me out there? Okay. Yeah, it's a special meeting that we scheduled primarily for the discussion of what is 4A on the agenda, which is the potential, the discussion and potential filing of an amicus brief on behalf of the Civilian Oversight Commission with the District Court of Appeals in a case called People versus Diana Turan. And excuse me a moment here. I was trying to get my mask out. There we go. And so we'll be discussing that, sort of the second item of business. So I want to welcome everybody though that is here for this special meeting. We're also going to try to during this meeting at least pick up several of the items on the agenda that were on the agenda for our January 16th meeting, which was canceled. So so there'll be several items that we'd hope to cover back in at our January meeting. Perhaps at this time, Tracy, Ms. Jordan, could I ask you to call the roll? I'm supposed to have a script of some sort, isn't it? No, it's not. Is it in here?
Chair Bonner,
Here.
Co-Vice Chair Garcia,
Here.
Co-Vice Chair Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner Callaway, Commissioner Cooper,
Here.
Commissioner Giggins, absent, Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Hicks, absent, Commissioner Kennedy.
Here.
We have a quorum, Commissioner Chair. Chair Bonner, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jordan. We'll turn right to the first item, which is the chair's report. And this is not a total report, but I put down we put on the agenda the commission's 27 recommendations that have been made to the sheriff back in I believe it was back in
March of 2023.
March of 2023. It was so long ago, almost 2 years ago. We made 27 recommendations, some of which have been acted upon by the sheriff and the sheriff's department, some of which have yet to be acted upon. And so attached to the agenda, to this agenda, is the essentially the commission's scorecard of where we believe the sheriff and the sheriff's department stands on adopting the 27 recommendations. And recently, on February 4th of this year, so earlier this month, we received a letter and an assessment from the sheriff's department as to where the sheriff's department believes they stand with respect to the 27 recommendations. At this point, the governance committee is with the executive director and staff is reviewing the sheriff's department assessment, and we'll update our own assessment based on that in due course. I think probably the main point is that we have received the update, and we are expecting that the sheriff himself with his representatives or subject matter experts will present essentially where they stand with respect to the 27 recommendations, not at our meeting next week, February 20th, but at our meeting in March on March 20th. So we will be setting aside on our agenda time for the sheriff to make a presentation and for ample opportunity for questions from the commission and the commissioners and the public with respect to where things stand, and if things haven't been implemented, why not? So I think that I guess I would make a comment that that seems somewhat timely, even though we're not going to have any detailed discussion this morning, I don't believe. Commissioners can ask questions and make any comments they want to, but I'm going to make one comment as the staff collects comments from the commissioners on the updated assessment of the sheriff's department, and that is, we really want to know what can be done to accelerate progress, and I say that because while I think the sheriff is taking steps to implement the recommendations, the sad fact remains that the sheriff's department has still not adopted the recommendation of this commission made quite some time ago, and then made again in the special counsel's report and recommendations to get rid of deputy cliques and deputy gangs. He still has not adopted a policy to eliminate deputy cliques within the sheriff's department. So we're still waiting for that and to see what will happen. Hopefully we'll have a discussion of that on at our March meeting. By the way, I did put it over to March because the sheriff has advised us that he has a conflict on February 20th, so he is not going to be here at the February 20th meeting. Otherwise, we would have taken this matter up at that time. But to accommodate him, we've extended. We're going to put this on the agenda for the March 20th meeting of the commission. So that's the report of the chair on this matter. But I do, before we move on, any questions or comments or observations from members of the commission?
Yes. I just want to
Johnson.
thank the commission for preparing this official scorecard, because this is a very important tracking document for fulfillment of the goals outlined by this commission. And I just think that in reading through this tracker, which is publicly available, attached to the agenda, it's very disappointing to note that only 6 of the 27 recommendations are fully implemented, and that 12 of them remain only partly implemented, and that even by the most generous scoring system, that puts this in the D range of fulfillment. And that's a very generous scoring system of 18 out of 27, but that's with counting those only partly fulfilled items. And I would also note, looking at item number 8 in particular, which the chair really nicely called out, about the failure to address deputy cliques as a holistic part of the strategy to rid the department of wrongdoing by deputy gangs, that remains unimplemented in its entirety. And the often repeated recommendation of this commission about avoiding the first assignment being in custody, item number 17, not implemented at all. So there is considerable room for needed and urgent improvement on these goals. And to see this very helpfully laid out tracker and the implementation status of our recommendations, which were widely applauded by Angelenos when we announced them on March 3rd, 2023, to see these still unimplemented at the level they are, I think is an urgent call to the public to keep the pressure on, and for my fellow commissioners to keep up with the work to mark the status, to measure the implementation, and to maintain pressure for compliance.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Johnson. Other comments, questions, or observations? All right, I see none. So I think there's no action on this agenda item, and I do want to, I think I omitted something, which is I think generally speaking, we have some sort of a short statement as to how the public can make comments at our commission meetings. I actually think most members of the public know how to do this. Certainly everybody here does, but nonetheless, we typically do that at each meeting. So Ms. Jordan, could you do that? And then I think we translate something into Spanish, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. If you wish to speak in person at today's meeting, please turn in your public comment card at the table with the public comment sign. If you are remote, raise your hand in WebEx or press *3 on your phone. Each person who signs up for public comment will have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that the chair may adjust the time allotted to less than 2 minutes for each public comment, depending on the number of individuals who have public comment. For each agenda item, I will call the public comment after commission discussion. General public comment will be heard near the ending of the meeting under Agenda Public Comment 12. At this time, I will turn it over to my colleague Robert to translate in Spanish.
Yeah, just one caveat, and that is, I know this is a special meeting, but we only have 2 hours, so I'd like to limit public comment to 2 minutes each, and then we have time at the end for general public comment. We might be able to expand it. Go ahead.
Buenos
Flores.
días. Le damos la bienvenida a esta reunión a miembros de la comunidad quienes prefieren hacer sus comentarios en español. Le daremos 2 minutos y podemos proveer traducción al inglés. Simplemente diga la palabra español antes de comenzar sus comentarios y le diremos cómo proceder. Gracias.
All right, thanks for that. Now we'll turn to agenda item 4A. And this is the primary reason for the special meeting of the Civilian Oversight Commission, to discuss and see if the Oversight Commission supports the filing of an amicus brief in People versus Diana Turan with respect to, in support of the defendant, or the Ms. Turan's petition for a writ of prohibition, which is now before the California Court of Appeal. The last date, the reason for accelerating this is the last date for filing an amicus brief is February 18th. In other words, it was before our meeting on February 20th. Otherwise, we could have waited until February 20th, but because of the deadline that's been set by the Court of Appeal, it was necessary to, if we're going to file an amicus brief, we needed as a commission to act on this before, by February 18th or before. I guess beyond that, I'm going to turn this matter over to Commissioner Kennedy. You have attached to the agenda, I think, a very excellently well-written brief, amicus brief, but I'm going to ask Sean, Commissioner Kennedy, to kind of walk through, first of all, I think you need to give a little bit of background in terms of the prosecution, this writ of prohibition. Some people might help to know what that is, and so what the issue is on the appeal, and then the positions that are outlined in the draft amicus brief on behalf of the commission. Maybe a word or two about what an amicus brief is and the purpose of that. And then the last thing I'd like you to address is just the rationale, the reason that the commission itself should support filing such a petition. I mean, in any order you want to do those things. But I was told by our county council here that county council did want to make some sort of a comment before we started this. And let me just ask county council, did you want to go into closed session for this discussion, Jansen, or did you just want to make a public comment here?
No, I just want to make a brief comment.
All right.
First of all, thank you, Chair Bonner, and we appreciate Commissioner Kennedy's fine efforts in preparing this amicus brief. As it relates to the COC's filing of Commissioner Kennedy's brief, and consistent with the COC's role of assisting and advising the Board of Supervisors
Of the Turan?
we do recommend that the COC ask the Board of Supervisors for authority to file this brief and for the Board of Supervisors to authorize our office to file it as counsel for the COC, as the COC does not have authority on its own to do so.
I might note that the Oversight Commission's already filed an amicus brief as a commission. So I'll just say, and Sean can speak to this too, but look, the commission itself has interests that are different from the county. I mean, that couldn't be clearer in so many instances, whatever the county is. I mean, differences in views from the county council on legal issues and the like. And the reality is that the commission has significant independent authority to act. That's under Measure R. And the county, who knows what position the county might want to take, but the commission itself, the Oversight Commission, has a very strong interest. I think, I haven't even heard, I have heard Sean's presentation. We've talked. I would say, I would say we have a very strong interest in supporting this amicus brief for reasons that probably would not necessarily be even wanting, the Board of Supervisors wouldn't even want to necessarily get concerned with these issues, in my judgment. So in any event, we will note for the record, Jansen will note for the record the comments of County Council. And Sean, don't hesitate if you think some further response is necessary to respond to them. Now I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Kennedy for his presentation. Sean.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank the Chair and the Executive Director and all of my colleagues on this commission for being here at a special hearing regarding this important issue. My arguments are laid out extensively in the draft amicus brief, and so I will try to address everything, Rob, that you asked me to address. In 1963, the United States Supreme Court held that prosecutors and law enforcement, the prosecution team, has a constitutional obligation to turn over to accused people exculpatory and impeaching information about prosecution witnesses who are going to testify against that accused person. That includes law enforcement witnesses, sheriff witnesses. This is a long established constitutional requirement of our criminal justice system. Despite that, I'm sorry to say, the department has a long history of not complying with this constitutional obligation, which is called the Brady obligation. After the case, Brady versus Maryland, that was before the Supreme Court. The department does not turn over information in its files that would impeach sheriff deputy witnesses. It hides it. And Diana Turan is a longtime public servant who served as a deputy district attorney, a constitutional policing advisor for the department itself. She worked at the Inspector General, the public defender, and again, returned as a high-level assistant district attorney. And in that time, she has extensively advocated for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department to get better at complying with its Brady obligations. And in the course of her work at the district attorney's office, she started collecting information that she knew, that she had learned from publicly available documents that impeached the credibility of sheriff witnesses so that they could be entered into the district attorney's Brady database so that individual prosecutors could actually comply with their obligation and let accused people know that the deputy sheriff testifying in their case had credibility problems or excessive force, if that was relevant, or other misconduct in their file that was relevant at trial. Against this background, it is truly extraordinary and startling that the department would investigate Ms. Turan and really other people, including our Inspector General and some of his employees, and claim that they were somehow misusing confidential computer information that the department has. And so they lobbied several agencies, the district attorney, the FBI, to prosecute Ms. Turan for what they say was misusing confidential information by actually complying with Brady. And the FBI, the investigation was led by Detective Mark Lilienfeld, who has testified before this body and was really pretty disheartening to hear his testimony and the things that he has been doing on the now disbanded public civil rights and public integrity detail. And so Detective Lilienfeld and others lobbied to prosecute Ms. Turan, and the FBI arranged a meeting. This is all in our special hearing transcripts. The FBI and the chief of the criminal division of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, our federal prosecutors, the chief, Brandon Fox, met with them, heard out the department, and said, there's no evidence of a crime here. Would you like me to give you a declination letter, which is a formal statement by the U.S. attorney that they declined to prosecute? And the department said that they didn't want that, and they continued to lobby for the prosecution of Ms. Turan for trying to engage in constitutionally required Brady compliance. And eventually they found a taker. Somehow they convinced our Attorney General's office to file charges against Ms. Turan, and we have this prosecution going on. And so this is a body which does not ordinarily get involved in criminal prosecutions for good reason. Our focus is on promoting transparency and the accountability of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department and advancing constitutional policing. But Brady compliance is part of constitutional policing, and we should never sit silent while the department orchestrates a prosecution to dissuade our district attorney's office from meeting its constitutional obligation to turn over exculpatory and impeaching information to accused people facing felony trials. We just should not do that. We have an obligation, in my opinion, to step forward and say that that's not right. So the first part of the brief talks about that it's not misuse of the department's police files for a prosecutor to give another prosecutor information about about impeachment that relates to deputy witnesses at criminal trials. That's the first part. The second part, which is particularly important, and which is why I appreciate everyone assembling here today so we could talk about this before the deadline expires, is this prosecution not only criminalizes constitutionally required Brady compliance, but it inhibits meaningful civilian oversight of the department. This application of the trade secrets statute, the computer hacking statute, against a district attorney simply trying to meet her constitutional obligation has undermined the COC's oversight of the department, which has a long history of resisting all forms of civilian oversight to the disadvantage of communities it is supposed to serve. And I say that because as this prosecution has progressed through the criminal justice system, we have heard from the leadership of the department that they cannot give COC ad hoc committees confidential documents because they fear that if department members provide us confidential documents that we need to do our job to actually fulfill the role that the Board of Supervisors appointed us to fulfill, they can't give us that document, because if they give it, they're afraid that their employees will be prosecuted by the California Attorney General, just as Ms. Turan is being prosecuted. There's a real irony there. The department actually lobbies and orchestrates a very problematic prosecution of a district attorney for Brady compliance based on confidential documents. and then cites the prosecution it wanted, that it investigated, that it pushed for, it cites that same prosecution now as a basis for defying our requests for confidential information that we need to do our job. And so I feel like we need to stand up for meaningful civilian oversight in LA County. We need the appellate courts to understand the background story and the practical effect of this prosecution and why it was brought and what its practical implications are. And I have complete respect for my friends and colleagues at the county council, but I just respectfully disagree with your statements about the law. My understanding is that this commission as an advisory body can never institute a lawsuit on its own without the permission of the Board of Supervisors, because the county council is the sole representative of the county when it's a party in litigation. But I want to point out that a criminal prosecution conducted by the Attorney General entitled "The People of the State of California versus Diana Taran" does not involve a lawsuit where Los Angeles County is a party of any kind. Los Angeles County is not a party to that criminal case. It's the state of California and Diana Taran. Nor are we a party or seeking to become a party or seeking to bind the county in any way, which your objection would be well taken if we were. An amicus curiae is legal Latin for a friend of the court. And all we are doing is filing a friend of the court brief based on our extensive knowledge and experience with oversight to inform the appellate justices about how this prosecution has negatively impacted oversight. And I would say stopped meaningful oversight in its tracks if the goal is fulfilled, because the department will just cite this case and this prosecution forever as a basis to never give us any confidential documents. For us to weigh in and share the wisdom of our experience, and some of us have been at this since the beginning, is important because we are an important voice with unique experience. The members of this commission are all volunteers devoted to achieving our goal of constitutional policing, community policing, collaboration, and transparency. I don't even know what I would ask the Board of Supervisors to do. The board has many, many things to do. It has no experience with oversight like we do. And so it makes sense that we, as a commission, would file our amicus brief as a commission, simply expressing our point of view. And so I would really urge this commission to vote yes and have a real voice here, because over and over again in these cases, the department and ALADS and POPA and really other law enforcement unions from all over the state and other organizations that represent law enforcement, they file amicus briefs all the time. And then the oversight body, under this rationale, would never file anything. We would never be able to file anything. And so the appellate court has like a skewed view of what's happening. And then finally, I want to say that the objection to us filing our own amicus brief is newfound because, as our chair noted, several years ago in another important case, ALADS versus the County of Los Angeles, which was the case where then Sheriff Jim McDonnell tried to create a Brady list to facilitate Brady compliance. And of course, the deputy union for our sheriffs stopped that temporarily. And it was taken to the Supreme Court, and we filed an amicus letter brief urging the Supreme Court to grant the petition for review and take the case, which they did. And they ultimately reached an opinion that was very consistent with this commission's amicus brief at that time. And I don't recall any objection from the county council to the COC filing an amicus letter brief in ALADS. And I just think that we have an obligation and a responsibility to provide balance to the outsized voice of the department and the deputy unions who regularly weigh in. And so this is an attempt to interject some balance into the discussion, and also, frankly, to stand up for what is just, because we should never prosecute a public servant who is trying to comply with the obligation to disclose impeaching information about sheriff witnesses at criminal trials.
Sean, that was an excellent presentation
Thank you.
that accompanies a very excellent brief. And I just add, look, county council is here, and that's good. We'd invite county council to go make a presentation to the board immediately so the county can join in this amicus brief. There's nothing, though, we're saying that's at all inconsistent with any interest of the county. In fact, everything we're saying in this brief is in the best interest of the county and the sheriff's department and the reform of the sheriff's department and this commission's access to confidential information. I see that Mr. Huntsman has a comment. I'm going to call on him, and then I'm going to call on any commissioners for any questions of Sean or any comments or observations, but I'll start with Mr. Huntsman.
The
Our
Inspector
Inspector General.
the Inspector General is special counsel to this commission, so I want to give you some legal advice.
Okay.
Diana Turan, the prosecution of her, as Commissioner Kennedy has pointed out, began from the Sheriff's Department. It began because in the summer before Sheriff Villanueva was elected, the Inspector General's office learned that the Sheriff's Department concealed misconduct evidence within a database in a manner that completely spoofed its own computer system, so that when they told us we were getting complete information, we were not. And we raised that issue with them, and they refused to provide us the complete information, including Diana Turan, who was part of the Sheriff's Department, until Villanueva's administration on the way in asked Alicia Alt to alter Sheriff's Department records so that it appeared that a deputy gang member was being rehired prior to Villanueva coming in. That triggered their willingness to give us those documents, which they did. Also triggered the attack on Diana Turan. Not only Diana Turan, as has been pointed out. For the following years, ever since, I've been accused by the Sheriff's Department of leaking confidential records, which is untrue. The county for a long time paid for a defense lawyer for me because of my Fifth Amendment rights. And despite those rights, I have, as you know, spoken publicly repeatedly. When the Attorney General began this prosecution, County Council discontinued my defense lawyer, despite the fact that the Attorney General's office has now declared being an Inspector General a crime. Because I use confidential information from sheriff's databases. Their definition is anything in any sheriff's computer database, it's confidential, and I use it in my reports to you all the time. So I'm committing that crime.
Well, wait a minute. So they've suspended, did you say that the Sheriff's Department has suspended your access to?
County
confidential-
Council has stopped paying my defense lawyer. So I now pay for him out of my own pocket because of that. In addition to that
So
problem.
that was county council's recommendation. You believe that the county stop essentially reimbursing the Inspector General for the County of Los Angeles, who's being pursued or under investigation? I'm just trying to understand what.
That's what County Council informed me. The county used to pay his bills and now they do not. And County Council told me that. It had nothing to do with the Sheriff's Department.
Continue.
Despite that, I went to the Attorney General's office when they prosecuted Diana Turan. There are times when it is necessary for people of good conscience to speak up. And this was one of those times. So I met with them, despite the fact that I was putting my head in the lion's mouth. And then afterwards, I was called as a witness in her trial, and I went and I testified fully and truthfully. And the Attorney General's office convinced the judge not to listen to the story of what Villanueva had done to selectively target Diana Taran, because they assured the judge that their prosecution had nothing to do with that. It was 100% based on her delivery of public records as a deputy district attorney. And yet in the appellate brief, they refer back to her when she left the office at that time when we were concerned that there would be an altering of records, and with good cause, by the incoming administration. If this body remains silent, then all this happens with no reaction from anybody who should react. I reported all this to the Attorney General's office years ago, and they chose not to investigate it. I brought it to their attention while they were prosecuting Diana Taran and received no response. It's a selective prosecution. It's a false prosecution. The Supreme Court, as Commissioner Kennedy has pointed out, has already said that when a DA knows evidence that is exculpatory, they have an absolute duty to provide it, no matter how they learned of it. So Diana Taran had to place herself at risk by complying with the Constitution. Nobody would dream that the Attorney General, who has been recently quoted in the paper as complaining about a number of actions by the Trump administration, would take an action like this, and yet they did. So I urge you to vote on this matter, to disregard the advice of county council, because as has been pointed out, you have previously submitted an amicus brief without objection. There is a rule of court that specifically provides for any person or entity to submit an amicus brief, which has no direct legal effect whatsoever. This is not a civil matter in which county council controls by the charter. And in fact, you were appointed under Government Code Section 25303.7 to assist the board in its duty under Government Code 25303 to see that the officials of this county discharge their duties. So I agree with county council that the board should direct them to file an amicus brief. It should have done that a year ago. It didn't. Time's up now. So you should act. And if the board on Tuesday wants to meet in closed session and direct county council to write a similar brief or sign off on yours, that would be great. But the concept that you should stand down, as Judge Bonner has pointed out, the board delegated to you a portion of their duties under this government code. They don't have the bandwidth to address all these issues on a day-to-day basis. As Commissioner Kennedy pointed out, they don't have the expertise, and they're politicians. So I urge you to do your duty and to speak up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huntsman. Now, questions, comments, observations. Yes, Commissioner Callaway.
So mine is really quick, but on my short time with the board, it is so sad that the first time that I hear a very clear and concise message from the county council is one to block us from doing what we should be doing. That makes no sense. All the easy questions that we was asking before had not been answered or needed to be researched. But today, it was a well-said, short summary that I completely understood, and it just makes me sad.
Thank you for that. Yes, Commissioner Gagins.
Well, my question, am I on? My question to Chair Bonner, to our Inspector General Max, to Sean, to all of our commissioners, when have we stood down? When? It's been 9 years since this commission was anointed. We took an oath to the Constitution. And here we are once again, have an opportunity to do what's right, to speak up, to hold down the fort, I'd like to say. And it just seems so clear that to prosecute someone who is doing their job, to find the little needling ways and the sneaky ways to understand. Max knows this. We know it. So I vote yes.
Well, we don't have the motion yet. But, excuse me. Yeah, Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I just want to compliment my fellow Commissioner Kennedy for the diligence that went into this brief and to the citation of recent history and the clear narrative about the origins of the case. I think it's just worth noting for the audience and for the Angelinos listening in that the driving force behind this original prosecution on the day before Thanksgiving in November of 2024, Mark Lilienfeld was fired by the South Pasadena Police Department after complaints of trainees that he engaged in Nazi salutes at police training events, and that it took documentation of those episodes and feedback from the public in order to make that termination possible of Mark Lilienfeld, and that there is accountability that takes the voices of interested people in Los Angeles County to effectuate. But my question to Commissioner Kennedy is, can you talk about the status of the case, the increasingly precarious and shaky ground on which it stands because of the order to show cause that came out on December 23rd of 2024, and to lay out a bit about why the case is on shakier ground as a result of that?
Sure, I'll try. The case began with, I think, 11 counts, and counts being just each time Ms. Turan shared court documents with another district attorney to determine whether they should be entered in the LA District Attorney's Brady database. They broke it up and made them counts, and the Attorney General dismissed some of the counts before they went to the preliminary hearing because there was no dispute that it was all public information. And then after it went to preliminary hearing, and actually that's where our Inspector General was a witness, he testified, the magistrate dismissed some more of the counts. So it keeps losing counts, but just because this is a application of the trade secrets or computer hacking statute that we just have never seen before. We researched it, and we just couldn't find an equivalent prosecution ever in the history of California applying it in this manner of a prosecutor doing her job, but they didn't like the way she did her job. It's usually stealing an employer's information to make profits for yourself, some kind of trade secret, or anything like that. And so this is like unheard of. There's just nothing there. And the magistrate himself throughout the preliminary hearing kept struggling with it. He did hold her to answer on some counts, but it's simply a very low, as he said, it's a very low standard probable cause. And he expressed reservations like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Judge Oda, the magistrate, he didn't understand it, but now she has to go to trial. And, the area of concern is that Ms. Turan, here she is. She just keeps having to go through this for doing her job. And I just think that it's really done by design to chill Brady compliance and to give the Sheriff's Department cover for continuing to deny our requests for needed information. And they keep using this prosecution as cover for doing that. And they should not be permitted to do that. And I hope the appellate court will stop them from continuing to do that.
I might note that There is no question that the Tehran prosecution has had a chilling effect on the sheriff and the sheriff's department in providing confidential information to this commission. We've had multiple, about a half a dozen requests to review various documents that are arguably confidential under state statute that have been denied to us. And the Tehran prosecution is cited certainly as, if not the reason, one of the dominant reasons that they can't provide it. And I just want to say the one thing, how ludicrous that position is, because it's not comparable to the Tehran situation. The sheriff of Los Angeles County and the leadership of Los Angeles, the sheriff's department, if they are advised by the county council that it does not violate state statute to provide confidential information to this commission or ad hoc committees of this commission, the sheriff could then turn over those documents and he would be protected, because a person who actually is relying on, in good faith, on the advice of the lawyers for the county can do this. And frankly, it raises the question of why county council isn't apparently advising the sheriff that it's lawful to turn over confidential information to ad hoc committees of this commission who agree to maintain the confidentiality of that information. I just don't understand it, to be honest with you. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me, because at least on our, well, look, I guess the law, there's always an argument on either side. I guess as lawyers, we have to admit that. But the law, I think, is, certainly reasonably clear that the sheriff would be on safe ground if he did this, and the county council should advise him. By the way, I don't think they've advised him he can't do it. I don't think they've advised him he can do it. And so if they don't advise him he can do it, he's saying, well, my lawyer is here for the county council's office. They're not telling me, they're not giving me a clear signal that this would be, that this would not violate state law. And that's where we are. But in any event, so the Tehran prosecution, I think to me, it's a red herring, but it's a make weight.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's there and it's cited to us, and it is having impact. Other questions or comments? Yes, Irma. Mr. Cooper.
I'm very concerned about this, because we are truly about transparency. And if we keep having things hidden and they don't come to light, but they're being used against the citizens, it's hurtful. And it's criminal justice all over again. You have evidence, but you're not going to share it. And then you're going to try to send someone to jail or prison, or make them lose everything they have trying to pay attorneys. It's wrong. It's not being transparent. It's not being upfront. And it's not taking care of the citizens. And it's unfair for the people trying to do the right thing in their job. And it's very, very sad. And it makes me wonder, what are the county councils doing? Are they not doing their job to protect those who work for LA? And then to tell us to stand down and what we cannot do? I'm sorry. I'm voting yes.
Well, don't be sorry about it. I understand, before taking further questions or comments from the commissioners, that County Council Jansen Diaz, Mr. Diaz, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bonner, and we do appreciate the input of all the members of this commission. One thing I do want to say is that although County Council has made the recommendation that this commission seek authority from the Board of Supervisors to file this amicus brief, we are unaware of anything that would prevent Commissioner Kennedy himself from filing this brief as an individual. In filing the brief as an individual, but not on behalf of the COC, he can list his title as a commission member of the COC and speak to his experiences serving on the commission as well. The second thing I do want to say as well, and I think this speaks to Commissioner Callaway's disappointment he expressed is that obviously there's a time crunch for the filing of this amicus brief. And we understand the swift nature in which litigation moves, as well as the challenges that the COC faces in acting in accordance to that and discussing actions it would like to take that's within its subject matter jurisdiction. So as opportunities like this arise, we certainly would recommend that the COC reach out to County Council as soon as possible.
What was that again? Reach out about what? Mr. Diaz?
Senior Chair Bonner?
I just didn't catch the last thing. You said that we're supposed to, you would like us to reach out. Who's to reach out to whom here? Just repeat that last sentence.
Well, again, Chair Bonner, I'm speaking to this amicus brief, but other opportunities such as the amicus brief that may arise in the future. One of the reasons why the special meeting here was called is because there is a time crunch. And as these opportunities arise, for example, future amicus briefs, we definitely encourage the COC to reach out to County Council as soon as possible so we can assist the COC in their efforts.
Okay, understand that. First of all, I don't believe that Sean Kennedy, individual, should be the one filing this amicus brief. I think it should be the entire commission, Oversight, Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission that does that. And so as far as seeking authority, look, trying to get the county to do anything in a timely way, let's just say it's pretty astonishing to think that the county could even move fast enough to file an amicus brief, given the timeline that courts of appeals typically set. And I say that at all, we've requested back in October of the county that we be given a meeting place, and that we expressed our preface to that meeting place be the board's hearing room in the Hall of Administration. And here we are, St. Anne's, this is February. So this is 4 or 5 months. We can't even get a permanent meeting room from the county. So the idea that it just strikes me as, this isn't county council's issue, by the way, but the idea that the county could even move quickly enough to file an amicus brief is pretty astonishing. I'd be really surprised to see that happen. In any event, I would support that the full commission and not an individual commissioner be on this amicus brief. JP.
I'd like to make a motion.
Would be nice.
The motion is to direct Commissioner Sean Kennedy on behalf of the commission to file amicus curiae brief in support of petitioner's petition for writ of prohibition.
Is there a second for that motion?
I second.
Right. Moved and seconded. Now, is there further discussion before we go to public comment? Because we're not going to take a vote on this until we have public comment. Any further discussion by any members of the commission? Any questions or comments anyone wants to make? Excuse me, it's hard to see. Oh, there's Lise. Okay, apparently that's completed. So let's take public comment on this item on the agenda, the filing of an amicus brief on behalf of the Civilian Oversight Commission. And let me say, by the way, if anybody has public comment on the first item, which was just a status report on the 27 recommendations, go ahead and make those two. I might have made, it's perhaps we should have had public comment on that. I'm not sure. In any event, feel free to comment on either one of those things. Tracy, Ms. Jordan, do we have public comments? Excuse me, do we have public comments?
Yes, we have 2 online comments.
Right.
We'll start with the first one. Eddie Torres, you have been unmuted. Eddie Torres, you have been unmuted. No response. We'll move on to the next one. Tony DeMarco.
No?
Okay, is that Eddie?
Yeah, this is Eddie.
Okay, Eddie, go ahead.
Yeah.
Make your
So,
comment.
I'm a resident of East Los Angeles and also the executive director of the East LA Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. And I fully support the motion. I think it's called the Dominguez motion. I think we need more transparency from everybody in LA County, all departments, and especially the LA County sheriffs. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next online comment is from Tony DeMarco. Tony, you have been unmuted. Tony?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm Tony DeMarco. I'm with the Whittier Boulevard Merchant Association in East Los Angeles, unincorporated. Like Mr. Torres, I am support of this motion and the transparency of our station and the sheriff's department. So I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have one in-person public comment from Allison Rubenfeld.
Hello, I'm here today as a legal fellow with the Loyola Anti-Racism Center and Check the Sheriff, which is a coalition led by families directly impacted by law enforcement violence. Thank you, commissioners, for taking the extraordinary step of submitting this amicus. When the people of LA County passed Measure R, it was a crystal clear call for this commission to be empowered with the tools that it needs to do proper oversight of LASD. That includes independence for this commission, so this body can perform its oversight function without being beholden to, quote, risk management interests of the Board of Supervisors, County Council, and LASD. The prosecution of Diana Taran is a direct threat to law enforcement oversight and constitutional prosecutions in Los Angeles County. We are already seeing this play out. Families who are part of criminal court cases against LASD deputies report a noticeable difference in their ability to access to district attorneys. Non-English speaking family members for whom Ms. Taran was previously translating case information can no longer understand their proceedings as the LADA has not provided them with translators. Left without an empowered conduit between themselves and the LADA, families feel as though the outcomes of their cases suffer and have lost what remaining trust they had in law enforcement and our justice system. In terms of oversight, since Ms. Taran's indictment, we have heard members of the OIG's office express hesitation in sharing information with this commission out of fear of being criminally charged. This feeling is justifiable. The AG's position would expand law enforcement confidentiality and cloak law enforcement personnel information that was previously available to the public as confidential. This position reifies an outdated definition of law enforcement transparency that threatens progress won through years of community organizing. The potential implications for the people who rely on this information for advocacy, research, and public education, including this commission, remain unknown. Between the threat of this prosecution and the ALAD's injunction that effectively bars the OIG from investigating the department, how effective oversight of LASD continue in LA is unclear. What is clear is that this prosecution is the product of LASD's Civil Rights and Public Corruption Unit's investigation into Ms. Taran. This is the same unit that publicly targeted Commissioner Giggins, Supervisor Kuehl, and Inspector General Max Huntsman, in what can only be seen as LASD's attempt to disrupt proper oversight. By attempting to stop this commission filing this brief, County Council is once again showing their hand, that they view themselves as defense attorneys for LASD, here to mitigate financial loss for the county, rather than to intervene in the widespread constitutional crises within the department. This only serves as the support needed for the changes to the COC ordinance to ensure that this commission has the independence it needs to do its job that the people want it to do, including much needed independent counsel to avoid what has become an obstructionist dynamic between County Council and this body. Thank you.
Do a comment, okay?
There are no
And
further
I did one, right? So to ask what, but ask them that.
Seconded to direct Commissioner Kennedy on behalf of this commission to file an amicus curiae brief in support of petitioner Diana Taran's petition for writ of prohibition before the California Court of Appeal. That's the motion that's been seconded. Let's call for a roll call vote on that one.
Chair Bonner,
Yes.
Co-Vice Chair Garcia,
Yes.
Co-Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Callaway,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Giggins,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks, absent. Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Chair Bonner, we have 8 yes, 0 nays, and 1 absent. Motion pass.
Yeah. carry forward, Commissioner Kennedy. All right. Let's turn to the next item, which is 4B on the agenda, which is the proposed revisions of this commission to 3.79, Chapter 3.79 of the County Code. This is on the agenda to just really to bring the full commission updated on the status of where we are with respect to getting the commission's proposed revisions before the Board of Supervisors and hopefully enacted into ordinance by the board. But you'll recall, let me briefly make a report on this. You'll recall that on September 23 of last year, this commission directed the executive director to forward the commission's proposed revisions to Chapter 3.79 to the Board of Supervisors via the executive office of the board, the executive officer, Mr. Yen. Before forwarding these recommendations to the board, however, Mr. Yen, and I think this is the typical practice, forwarded our proposed revisions, the commission's proposed revisions to 3.79 to County Council for legal review. By the way, 3 months elapsed. 3 months after the COC approved the revisions, County Council forwarded a letter to Mr. Yen. We were copied with some suggested edits to the executive's, suggested edits. This letter and the attachment is dated December 24th, 2024. So it's about 3 months we lost right there. But, they reviewed them, they made some comments, and I call that the Christmas Eve letter, by the way. But so then through the Oversight Commission's Governance Ad Hoc Committee on January 6th, about January 6th, don't hold me to the exact date, it was pretty soon thereafter, we responded and commented on County Council's edits and observations and comments. Most of the edits, by the way, did not appear to be related to any legal issue whatsoever. They were purely policy positions that apparently County Council was taking. We don't know. In any event, they were policy positions, not legal positions for the most part. And thereafter, a virtual meeting was set up to discuss the matter with the executive officer, Mr. Yen, and County Councils and that was ultimately got set up by January 31st. So now we had a meeting on January 31st. Before the January 31st meeting, though, that afternoon on January 30th, we received another letter from County Council with suggested edits to the Oversight Commission's proposed revisions. After reviewing, by the way, this is the January 30th letter from County Council, and after reviewing that letter, and this is reviewed through the governance ad hoc of the Oversight Commission, we submitted at his request to the executive officer the final of the proposed revisions of this commission were submitted to Mr. Yen through the executive director. And I think that was sometime in the first week of February. Ms. Mosley can correct me if I'm way off. And we did that so he could have them to attach to what's called a board letter that the executive officer, Mr. Yen, has to submit to the board before the proposed revisions actually can be voted on by the Board of Supervisors. The final of the proposed revisions, by the way, and it's attached to the agenda here. So then there are some slight tweaks that were made, and I want the full commission to be aware of that. They're very slight, and I'll mention a couple of them, the key ones anyway. But in any event, the final of our proposed revisions were circulated through the Governance Ad Hoc Committee with the assistance of the Executive Director and the Deputy Executive Director. There are no substantive changes from our earlier proposed revisions, but we did adopt a couple of the County Council suggested edits. And here, if I have it, yes. I just want to briefly point out what they are so you get the gist of them, because it's important that the full commission have actually an understanding. I think the final revisions, by the way, are totally consistent with what the commission approved back in September of 2024, but there are the slight changes that are worth, besides typos that are worth noting, are on page 5, and that has to do with 3.79.035, and that is an important, perhaps even the most important of all of the revisions we're proposing, because that's the one that would permit the commission, at least through ad hoc committees, to be able to access confidential information. So if you have that in front of you, I don't know if we can put it on the screen or not. We initially had the wording because by the wording of the original ordinance was because the commission is a Brown Act body that is not authorized to conduct closed sessions. The county council has no problem and did not object to deleting that is not authorized to conduct closed sessions, which I think is gratifying. But of course, under the Brown Act itself, a Brown Act body can conduct closed sessions for certain limited purposes specified by the Brown Act and acknowledged with the case law. But they wanted to change Brown Act body, so we struck that to legislative body subject to the Brown Act. So we did make that change. I just want you to know that that change was made to the 0.035. The second change there is we added some words. These were not suggested by county council. I don't mean to imply that, but if you read the 0.035, we indicated that the commission may not receive, I'm just receiving what is the clear language, I mean the unaltered language was the commission may not receive records protected by any law, et cetera, protecting confidentiality records, including some state statutes that are cited there, unless such records are appropriately redacted. Now, those words were all in our original proposed provisions, unless they were appropriately redacted. We did add the words or subject to disclosure under the Brown Act in closed session. And we also added the words or are disclosable under the Public Record Act. In other words, we wanted to make it clear that that to the extent that the Brown Act permits disclosure at closed sessions, that should be explicitly stated in the ordinance because it's consistent with the law. And we also, there are certain situations where the Public Records Act, as we all know, AB 1421 and so forth, AB 16, where if there's a completed investigation that involves lethal force or serious bodily injury and some other things, that those are disclosable. I mean, they're not even confidential records. So we wanted to make, that's why that added language, that language was added. The rest of it, well, is unchanged except that the county council, at that, there's a section, the next sentence is members of the ad hoc committee, blah, blah, blah. County council wanted to add that provided there is a memorandum of understanding between the sheriff's department and the commission. That wasn't in our original language. It's been always contemplated that there would be an MOU. So we saw no reason to object to that language. And so we included it in there. So the only other revision that I think it's worth drawing your attention to in the final revisions of the commission's original proposed revisions of last September, is 3.79.100. And this just adds some words about closed sessions. And the words that we added, it adds that we have proposed to add to what is now the final of our proposed revisions, is that the commission may only meet in closed session for purposes permitted under the Brown Act, and the commission will confer with county council before going into closed session. So that's the gist of the changes. By the way, I'll entertain any questions or comments there might be on, and you have one, JP. Yeah, go ahead.
Page 5, the very first paragraph, because the commission is a legislative body. Define for me what a legislative
minute.
body is. I don't believe we are a legislative body.
Well, yeah, I understand, and I actually saw your note on that, but under the Brown Act, we are a legislative body. I'm just telling you, the law says we're a legislative body. Colloquially, can we pass legislation? No. But under the Brown Act, the way it defines legislative body, the Civilian Oversight Commission is a legislative body under the Brown Act.
It's a lawyer thing, Jake.
Yeah, it's a lawyer thing, I guess. But good question. I think that really is pretty much what I wanted to cover. I mean, other than where do we go from here? We expect, based upon, and the executive director has been very much engaged and involved in all of this, but we expect that Mr. Yen will forward a board letter. In fact, he asked for some assistance from the executive director in terms of the board letter, and that I think that's in the process of being finalized. Once the board letter is submitted to the Board of Supervisors, the next step in the process will be that there will be a discussion of essentially the final proposed revisions of the Civilian Oversight Commission with what's called the Justice Deputies Cluster Public Meeting. So that should be the next step. We would expect at that, not only would we have an opportunity to present, but we probably expect that the Sheriff's Department will be there and perhaps other interested parties to discuss the Commission's proposed revisions to 3.79. Once that process is done, I believe it then goes on the Board of Supervisors agenda for either discussion or a unanimous vote or whatever, however they want to put it on their agenda. But so at that point, we will actually be able to, we hope, and our goal is to get these proposed revisions adopted by the Board of Supervisors. And I won't say it too many times, but I'll say it once more, that this commission cannot be an effective oversight commission over the Sheriff's Department unless it has access to confidential information. And so it's really important that all of the commissioners understand, and frankly, we're going to need to be, we need to explain to people why these revisions are important to oversight of the Sheriff's Department and on the long term of a Sheriff's Department that is more professional, that is more consistent in its practices with constitutional policing, a Sheriff's Department that does not cause as great a liability to the County of Los Angeles taxpayers, and ultimately a Sheriff's Department that is trusted by the public, all the public. All right, so now, I'm sorry, we had one question, but let me open it up for any questions or comments about the sort of where we are with the 3.79 provisions, the slight changes to make to the final revisions, or anything else any commissioner wants to ask questions about or discuss. Apparently I was so thorough and clear in my explanations.
I do just want to note that we have an opportunity to bring this before the public. We have a East LA forum regarding sheriff response to the World Series last year coming up at the end of this month on the 27th. But I would like to just move forward and elevate the opportunity raised by the Deputy Executive Director and the Executive Director to engage the public over this updating of the ordinance, possibly in March. But I support the summary and I support this moving forward of the ordinance as revised.
Any other questions or comments on the update of the 3.79 revisions? Okay, so there, we may actually, I think we're considering possibly doing a virtual town hall on this, aren't we? Could you perhaps make a comment on that, Charmaine?
Yes, we are considering doing a virtual town hall on I believe the duties and responsibilities of this commission and what has led to the proposed revisions to 3.79. And that would give the public an opportunity to learn more about the commission and also the challenges that the commission has been faced with over the last several years. And looking forward, the proposed revisions to 3.79 and what does those provisions mean? So that is going to be upcoming over the next, I believe, 2 or 3 months, hopefully sooner.
And I just want to compliment the executive director on the fresh insight that she has brought to this role. You know, we've had a lot of conversation here today about longevity and continuity on this commission, but we've also had fresh insight brought to this commission, both by new members, but also by staff. And that insight, the clarity and the outside perspective, the independence that you have brought from your previous experience, both in this state and elsewhere, has been really renewing to our energy and the fuel in this commission to engage the public and also to make needed changes to make our oversight function real. Let's just remember the basics, that strong oversight is public safety. And I just want to compliment your forthrightness as our executive director, no longer new, but still with fresh insights that continue to propel us forward. Thank you, Charmaine.
Yep. Okay, you're here for that. Thank you. And by the way, thank you, the executive director and the staff, for, if I didn't do this previously, maybe I did at the outset, but in very short order, setting up this special hearing, which is no easy task. Okay, so let's move on to item 4C on the agenda. This shouldn't take but a few minutes, I think, but this is simply a proposal or a motion that would collapse dissolve, first of all, the conditions of confinement ad hoc committee, and could dissolve the jail staffing ad hoc committee and create a new sort of single ad hoc committee, jail conditions and staffing ad hoc committee. It's mainly just to reduce the numbers of ad hoc committees, and because this jail staffing issue is totally interrelated with the conditions of confinement in the LA County Jail, there should just be one committee that's handling this. And it will remain, Irma Cooper will remain the lead of that committee. And I hope that I might need to take somebody off. I'll see. I mean, just so we don't have more than 4 on this new committee. But I'll discuss that with appropriate commissioners, and anybody who actually is interested in being on this committee should contact me in the next week or 2. But there needs to be a motion here, and I guess I'll move to dissolve. I'll move the motion as stated in the agenda. All right, it's moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comment on it? Okay, there is none. Do we have any public comments on this specific item of collapsing the 2 ad hoc committees?
Yes, we have one online public comment from Peter Eliasberg.
Okay.
Peter, you have been unmuted. Peter, you have been unmuted.
That I had to unmute myself. Apologies. I actually was intending to comment on the last item, but then didn't see any evidence that there was a call for comment, but I did have my hand raised. But I did just want to point out we strongly support the changes to the commission's charter to allow the commission to create more effective oversight. I remain concerned, as I set forth in a letter that I hope went to all the commission members, that the county council appears once again to be leaning over backwards to do the bidding of law enforcement and suggesting that there are problems or reasons why ad hoc committees of the Civilian Oversight Commission cannot get material that's covered by Penal Code 832.7. I think the county council's position is completely unfounded. And I hope that that you all will continue to push forward with your request. I don't think there's any merit the position of county counsel any more than I think that there was merit in the county council's trying to stop you from submitting an amicus brief. And I'm glad you all voted to go forward and do that. Thank you for allowing me to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Eliasberg.
There are no
Okay.
further public comments on
Okay,
this
so we
item.
have a move and seconded to essentially dissolve and then reform another ad hoc committee. I think we can probably just, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair is an aye. Anyone opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Yeah, it's 8-0 and the motion carries. Now, we're up to 4D on the agenda, and this is a report back on the accessibility of menstrual products in the LA County Jail and lockups. And I believe this spins off of a report by the Office of Inspector General. Yes, I know it is because the report is attached to our agenda, and I did look at it a couple of weeks ago, I think. In any event, let me ask Mr. Huntsman, are you or do you have somebody else that would report on this particular report?
Just me, and I have no comments on D or E, but I'm happy to answer any questions. D is reports compliance with the new legal requirements. But as the report lays out, there's still some challenges to getting full implementation, and we will monitor that process, but so far so good. And then the second one is a long-standing problem that has been addressed by many county leaders.
Wait, what's the second one? What is the second one? You
The
mean
second one is
commissary prices?
Yes.
Okay, leave that aside.
Okay.
For a moment.
I will
We're
not
just
comment on
4D.
that yet. I'll not comment on it later too.
So on the menstrual products issue, I believe the IG actually has a team, a small team anyway, that regularly inspects the county jails, various jail facilities. Is that correct?
Correct. Our custody group does that, is in there regularly, raised these issues, has been ongoing raising them. And so we're pretty aware of the process, and that's where the report came out of, and we will continue to monitor.
All right, that's the main thing, that you will be monitoring, among other things, the compliance with the requirements to provide menstrual products.
Absolutely. And we're fortunate. Paula Tokar is here today representing the sheriff. So as to both these items, she would be the most knowledgeable person, I think, in the sheriff's department to address any questions that anybody has. But as I say, I think it's a work in progress.
I'm not sure we alerted the sheriff's department that we would be discussing this agenda, but I didn't even see Paula here. Where is she?
She's at the end of the table. She's all the way down there.
And that's why I didn't see her. Hi, Paula. Okay. Paula, do you have any comment? I don't want to spring this on you because I'm not sure you were prepared to respond to this.
No, I agree with the IG. We have, I believe we've made great progress. I have personally inspected and conducted town hall meetings at CRDF, and the availability of the products is there. I received no complaints on that issue when I conducted my town hall yesterday. When we did the initial rollout, we had some supply chain issues that's since been resolved, and we are purchasing more than we need as we try and get a better handle on what our ongoing need will be. But I'm proud of the progress that we made, and we will work with the IG to ensure that we implement the recommendations and continue this progress.
Thanks for that. Let me ask any member of the commission, particularly perhaps Mr. Cooper, I don't know, but any member of the commission that has any questions or comments particularly of Mr. Huntsman.
Well, my concern was the price of the supply.
No, we're going to get to that. Yeah, we haven't gotten to that yet.
Oh, we're still on the menstrual?
Yeah.
Oh.
So are we done? No further questions or comments. I am going to go now to the 4E, which is the status of the issue of profit markups and reducing prices on commissary items. This is also the subject of a board motion, I believe, but I'll turn initially to Inspector General, Mr. Huntsman, to give us a report on that. There is a report on that, by the way, a fairly recent one, just February 6th, by the IG on this subject, but could you summarize or highlight that report in any way that you think appropriate Inspector General.
This issue has been discussed ad nauseum in the county for most of the time that I've been Inspector General. We raised it initially. Everybody shook their heads and was shocked that we have massive markups. And so the board's made a motion and all, but the problem continues. As there's an attached letter from the Sheriff's Department, they point out that they don't do the markups, but the contract allows the private vendor to do the markups. And then we fund a large part of our budget using this money. And it's not the way we should do it. We should budget these items. The county should pay for the things that are being paid for, and we shouldn't do it as markups for things that people can buy when they're in custody. I think I've never heard anybody make a credible argument for otherwise. I think it's 100% a dollars and cents issue, and when the county chooses not to continue these markups, they will stop, but they still continue.
All right. Let me ask the members of the commission any questions or comments. Any questions of Mr. Huntsman and or any comments you wish to make?
I understand it's been history, but is there anything we can do to try to change it in terms of vendor contracts? Who approve the contracts?
All contracts go through the board, so the board can refuse them. There's a current contract in existence, which we're stuck with, but it has a life that eventually goes away. So if the board chooses to say, no, we won't approve these contracts anymore, they must be capped in the same way that we have a no price gouging because of the fires rule. We have a no price gouging rule here, but then the department is going to need a budgetary item to cover these costs because we're floating a bunch of costs off them. The board can do that. The department can do that through the budget process. I mean, the county can do it. You, the commission, can't do it directly, but you can certainly advise it and publicize it.
So the markup, does it cover a profit or just a break even?
Substantial profit, which is shared with the county.
Okay, other questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Kennedy.
Hey, for our IG or the Sheriff's Department, I mean, do we know why the board keeps approving? This just sounds so terribly unfair to jack up the prices on incarcerated people who, their families are probably already suffering and they're suffering. Why does the board keep doing it? Do we know?
Anybody can weigh in who knows. My belief is that it's because this is a lot of money and the county doesn't want to just budget the item, and this allows them to not budget it. But I don't know why nothing has happened in all these years.
Other questions, comments, observations?
Yeah, I had a
Luis, yep.
And thank you for pointing out that this is, a contract that's approved by the county. I mean, I find it very problematic that we have this Care First agenda, but yet people in the jails are basically denied, the price markup it's obscene for, deodorants, for toothpaste, for, everything is, the markup is terrible. And you're right, this has been going on for a long time. And it just seems like it's just, kind of this spinning the wheels, and the accountability stops, I think, at the Board of Supervisors. So hopefully there's something that can be done from an oversight perspective. And because this is an issue that needs to be addressed, those basic necessities impact your time. And, eventually these people will be coming home to their community. And so it starts in there, and, access to these basic necessities, without the markup, I think would be the ideal. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to note for the record that this concern about the costliness of basic items in detention is one of the top line concerns raised by incarcerated people during our visits, whether it's North County, whether it's downtown Men's Central Jail. whether it's women or men. This is a recurring concern raised by incarcerated people in every visit, in every context, whether it's food, whether it's hygiene, and whether it's telephone access. So I just want to raise the evidence from our incarcerated population expressing repeated concern about this unrectified problem. And I think we do need to do more, and we need to raise our own voices as commissioners in addition to our collective voice as a commission.
If I may make a comment, we do have I don't dispute anything that Mr. Huntsman stated. We do have a current contract that we contracted pricing for. As we develop a new contract, we are looking to ensure that the pricing is the same that would be paid by anyone in the community at a local store, a Ralph's, a Walmart. Past contracts based pricing on kind of specialty stores that were in the downtown area, which tends to be a higher price. We've expanded so that you can go out to the community, so that it's really the people that are buying these items off the commissary list are paying the price that anyone going to their local grocery store, were they in the community, would be paying. Phone calls are now free to the inmate population because that was raised. There was another point that I would like to make. Basic hygiene items are offered. So anyone who cannot afford these commissary prices, we do give hygiene items for free as well as meals. So we are making strides. Oh, the commission, the funding that was raised used to be split with our maintenance staff for maintenance in the jail. That is no longer the case. That 49% of revenue has now been picked up in the budget of the Sheriff's Department through board action. So I hear what's being said. I just didn't want to leave it that there's been no progress as these issues have been raised. I believe there's been tremendous progress.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? So apparently, as Inspector General Huntsman says, this issue's been around for years. I think there's no action on either 4D or E. Is there any further question or comments from the commissioners? Do you have a comment? No, okay. So I think we're done with that. So we can take public comment on these two matters. And I think we'll combine that with the general public comment. So anybody who wants to comment on the availability of menstrual products, the issue of jail commissary markups, or just general comments on any subject you think is within the jurisdiction of the Oversight Commission, we're going to go to general public comment as well. So Tracy, do we have any public comments on any of those items?
Yes, we have 6 in-person public comments. The first public comment is from Jacqueline Venters.
Good morning, everyone. I didn't want to go first, but I'm here. First, I want to give praises to God. I started on this journey, and I call it a journey for justice in 2011. I sit here today with my son, Tanel Billups, and I came here in 2018 fighting for justice, looking for some help after him being shot 5 times in the back by the Los Angeles Sheriff Department and a gun planted. It was a long journey, you guys. It took me 13 years to fight for justice after this deputy planted a weapon. And on this journey, I found so much unjust in our system that is hurtful, and I would never want to see nobody else go through nothing like this. This deputy shot 4 people in 7 months. He wasn't even supposed to be out on patrol. I came in here one day with a wagon because they said I didn't have proof. I had a wagon full of paperwork, documentation showing that this deputy was corrupt. All of his partners told the truth that they never seen a weapon. In the courtroom, I found unjust in the courtroom. He was forced to take a deal under duress by the corrupt public defender that failed to pull his file. But what they didn't know was my relationship with law enforcement. Chief Gooden sit here. He's my friend. At that time, he was captain of that station. And they supposedly did an investigation, but they didn't because my son wouldn't have been in there for almost 14 years if they had. Mac Huntsman was part of it. It's a podcast called Four Shootings, One Deputy. Pull it up. KPCC did a 2-year investigation into this deputy because she contacted me and said that out of all the cases, his stood out. She did this investigation, and pending on that investigation, it just spilled over into some more stuff. We got an investigation into the whole sheriff department for the gangs. It was proven that we had gangs. This deputy
Excuse
that
me.
shot.
Chair Bonner, her time is up.
No,
Do you-
let her go on, because I want to hear the story.
Yeah,
And then-
thank you.
So, but what station was this? I know
This was the Century Station,
Century
Mr.
Station,
Bonner.
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Upon the investigation, you know, we did find out that it was deputy gangs in the sheriff's department. The deputy that shot him was a jump out boy. My son started running, and in seconds, this deputy jumped out and started shooting, shot him 5 times in the back. A month after he shot my son 5 times in the back, he shot another young man. He killed one prior to that, and one was a minor on his knees with his hands up. Captain Gooden had told me at this time in 2018, I never told him that was my son until this podcast came out. And he told me that Ms. Venters, it's going to be an investigation, but it's going to take a while. And 2 weeks later, I got a letter. I know it wasn't no investigation. This was part of the cover up. I got so much paperwork showing that it was all bad, and nothing happened to him. And this goes back to transparency and accountability. We see that these deputies, I sit in here for years and watch these families come up in here and share their stories. Their loved ones is dead, you guys. God saved mine to tell this story, and I'm telling you guys today, it's not my blood son. He's my grandchildren's dad. But I fought for him like I birthed him because it was wrong what they did to him. And he's not the only one that this has happened to. It's others. And I'm standing here today, I'm asking you guys, what are we gonna do? And I'm not saying me. What are we gonna do? Because God guided me on this one, because I don't know what I did. I didn't have no attorney. The attorneys told me I had to pay $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 to get his case back in court. He home. I picked him up December the 18th. They took that gun off because they know he didn't have a gun. When I first came here, I gave everybody that was here, a lot of you guys are new, I gave everybody a copy of a file. My mentor, Mr. Asbury, you guys know he's retired from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And Ron is retired from the Sheriff Department. We're all lifetime members of the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice. This is what we're supposed to do, but I never thought that this would be part of my assignment, you know, my baby. But we did something. We did something, and I don't want to make it about him. I want to make it about some others that's in there that's locked up. What can we do to help them? As a lifetime member, a founder, executive director of a 24-year nonprofit in Compton, and an advocate. This was hurtful. And I can't imagine what some of these other parents that are going through, because they give up. I fought for 13 years, you guys. April 4th, 2011, this happened. I picked him up December the 18th. And I told him, you're going to have to take a deal, because not only the sheriff in the county jail, 2 hours after him being released, they pushed him out of his wheelchair. He had a collapsed lung and a ruptured kidney. In the county jail, they beat him. The sheriffs beat him and allowed the inmates to beat him. They denied him his medication, mental health. Denied him his medication, showers, the worst. And the worst thing they did was told him, you're not gonna make it out of there. They went in and cell and took everything. I told him, you're gonna have to take the deal, honey, because I got to get you out of there. They're going to kill you. He tried to kill him.
You know, look, I really appreciate your sharing this story, and everybody should have a grandmother like you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner, but you was here, and I want to give a shout out to you because I remember that day when you said you made a motion to open up investigation or something. It was on a Zoom meeting, and I could hear the sigh in everybody, like they couldn't believe you made that request, but you did it, and we got that investigation. Now, what are we going to do with these corrupt deputies? All of them not corrupt. I have family members, homicide investigators.
You and I can talk about that after
Thank
the
you.
meeting, okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
God bless you guys.
Right. And you too.
Next public comment is from Tanel Bullets. He passes. Next public comment is from James Underdown.
Hi, thanks for hearing me. My name is James Underdown. I'm the executive director of the Center for Inquiry in Los Angeles. We're a nationwide organization that does advocacy for secular Americans. And this case also has the eye of a couple other national organizations. What I'm talking about is the false arrest case of Melvin Steve Hill, because it began with an LA sheriff's deputy having a problem with Steve's religious beliefs and probably his skin color as well. This led to the Department of Justice arresting Steve at the behest of the sheriff's department and seizing his legally registered firearms. They still have not been returned, by the way. Both the Department of Justice and the Sheriff's Department are pointing fingers at each other. They're passing the buck back and forth. Both of them know something wrong happened, but they're not taking individual responsibility for it. And the Office of the Inspector General has also been contacted about this, and they are saying that each department should police itself, which clearly is not happening. So this well-documented case has been going around in circles for years. What my organization wants to know is, how do we get an impartial investigator to look seriously at this case and stop passing the buck? As I said, it's extremely well documented what happened in this false arrest that began with the LA Sheriff's Department. Who will hold this department accountable? So I don't know what happens next. That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
To ask you people what can be done. I'll be here afterward if you have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment is from Steve Hill.
So frustrated. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Steve Hill. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I'm a retired correctional peace officer for the state of California. And for over 20 years, I've been providing home appraisal services and valuations in the Antelope Valley. I'm not going to go back. I go back with problems with our sheriff's department for years. But I'm not going to go back to when they shot and killed my dog in my driveway, who didn't bite anybody. I want to start on March 7th, 2022, when I was arrested by the State Department of Justice after being placed on a list, in my belief, by Alex Villanueva. And now I can't find anybody to get justice for myself. I can't clear my name. I can't get into a courtroom. I'm suing them. And of course, all the judges protect law enforcement, so I can't even get in a courtroom there. I've spent well over $10,000 just trying to clear my name. And I think I should be the poster child for why the sheriff's department should not be allowed to investigate themselves. I just got an email the other day from Mr. Huntsman where you directed someone in your department directed me to go to the Department of Justice instead of you guys conducting investigation where the sheriff don't judge themselves. Because I heard it in the investigation that Sergeant Gutierrez was conducting. He was telling me that the DOJ was trying to make them look bad. Basically, the LASD does a pretty good job for themselves to make themselves look bad. I don't know where to get justice at.
Thank you.
My new congressman, George Whitesides,
Thank you,
who I
Mr.
ran
Hill.
against,
Next public comment.
I'll give you about 20 seconds to wrap it up here.
my congressman that I ran against for Congress last year, where I received 12.2% of the vote. He wrote out everything that I've been through pretty well, but no one will expose this. And sad to say, there's about 5 people that I'm looking at that are looking at me right now that knows exactly what I'm going through. I can't get justice. This has ruined my life. My wife wants a divorce. She's a school teacher. She's not an activist like me. But I can't get any justice anywhere. Where am I supposed to go? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there other public comment? Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Yes, next public comment is from Raquel Derfler.
Do you know the name of the?
Good afternoon. So back on June 24th of 2023, a deputy, Trevor Kirk, was captured on video body slamming an elder, pepper spraying her, and threatening to punch her in a Lancaster Winco parking lot. This was all in retaliation for her legally filming his interaction or his detention of her male companion. So we at Council of the Contract were able to organize and mobilize a large community effort, which actually garnered national attention to the incident and resulted in the FBI investigating Deputy Kirk. So this past week, a federal jury found Kirk guilty on a felony count of deprivation of rights under the color of law. So while this verdict was a meaningful step in holding law enforcement accountable for abusing their authority, it was disturbing that in the courtroom, not only was former Sheriff Villanueva present, but also current Sheriff Luna. His presence sent a clear
Excuse me, Sheriff Luna was present in the courtroom?
This is according to the victim's lawyer.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. His presence sent a clear message that he was continuing the tradition of LASD leadership, supporting personnel at all costs, even when they physically harm the people they are sworn to serve. A GoFundMe has been set up for Deputy or former Deputy Kirk, and as of this morning, had earned $34,445, including donations from current members of LASD, Deputy Bo Early, a Lieutenant Donald Downton, LASD dispatcher Mike Luna, and Lieutenants Dave and Lucy Honor. So Kirk supporters have also called for Trump to pardon Kirk, as this was a federal charge. They assert that Kirk was wrongly targeted for just doing his job, like everyone else on the force. They actually aren't wrong. There are many deputies who engage in this same behavior as Kirk, and that's actually what the problem is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
The last public comment is from Michelle Infante.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Sheriff's Department and the contractors either make money or they don't. And they do. We know that, whether it's 1% or 3%, off of people who are incarcerated, who are jailed sometimes, who don't have money, are jailed sometimes who don't understand the system because it's their first time. That's what happened to me. I didn't know anything about commissary for months, being stuck in there for 6 months. So the Sheriff's Department and the contractor should be ashamed of themselves, because why are you making money off of somebody who's inside, who's not working? That doesn't make sense. And also, not too long ago, families used to be able to mail things to their families. without having to go through a company who charges a fee, who sometimes doesn't get the box there, and the families have to pay again to find out what happened to the box. So who's making money again? We have all these companies making the money off of backs of people who are not working. It doesn't make sense what you say when you come up here and you talk about it. The sheriff's department and sometimes the commissioners or other agencies that are up here, these people are not working and you're requesting them to pay extra prices on something that doesn't cost what you have in commissary. And you won't allow a family to send them a box so that they can eat that. Some people can't even eat that now because they can't afford to pay it. So you're not considering someone eating over your profit. And it's a shame that we all have to sit up here and listen to it over and over again because it doesn't make sense. Again, how are you trying to bill someone or take money from someone when they're stuck in jail and they're not working and they don't have a job?
Thank you. Chair Bonner, the very final comment is from Allie Rubenfield.
I'll be fast. There's a fundamental problem with proposing that charging the people who are incarcerated the same price as those members of the public for mental projects is they don't have the same earning capacity. So what really happens is this burden just gets passed on to their families, and this is not a solution. Menstrual products are a requirement for human dignity and they should be free. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, the generic menstrual products are free and in abundance. There are brand name products offered for sale should someone choose to purchase that, but their menstrual products are free.
Thanks for that clarification, Paula. All right, so that concludes the agenda. Let me say our next meeting of this commission actually is next week, next Thursday, February 20th. And we'll meet here at between 9 a.m. and noon here at St. Anne's Conference Center. Secondly, I want everybody to be aware we are going to have a town hall session on February 27th in East Los Angeles. Vice Commission co-chairs Garcia and Johnson, along with our executive director, will hear from the community. At least I hope the community turns out in East LA, hear feedback on particularly on the sheriff's response to the 2024 World Series and playoff celebrations in East Los Angeles. Third, you can stay up to date on the commission's activities by going to following us on our social media and signing up for our emails. Before we adjourn, let me just ask, are there any questions, comments, or thoughts the commissioners want to express? Yes, Commissioner Callaway.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say a comment of when I personally visited someone in jail and the commissary for actually having snacks were like completely ridiculous prices. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially I know that we're going to be talking about it in the ad hoc commission committee for jail conditions, because that is an oppressive thing to see. Because what happened was I was visiting, I drove with a person that was in jail, mom, because she said she didn't have anybody to drive with her at the time. And then he wanted me to actually get these snacks and not pay for it. So it does go back, even if you're friends of the family, goes back on the family to also, have hospitality, because they know how much it actually takes to even get there. I had to go through basically the same type of security check, application, months-long process, even to actually visit. So it is very important for us to try to figure out how do we eliminate this conflict of interest where somebody is the county making money off of snacks and then having that upcharge going to the family, which is another punishment that they have to live through, and they didn't even do anything and just want to be there to support. So I really hope that we look into that as a commission to make sure that this type of conflict of interest starts to end at a more wider and quicker pace.
I'll ask Commissioner Cooper as the lead of the jail condition and safety, jail condition and staffing.
Chair Bonner.
It's up to you, by the way, as the chair of that ad hoc committee, but that seems like an issue you might take up, although one that apparently is going to be very difficult to solve. But maybe you'll come up with some solution where nobody else has. So we'll see.
And
yeah.
Chair Bonner, I'd just like to highlight that the Budget Ad Hoc Committee is currently conducting a survey to secure community feedback related to the Sheriff's Department budget for fiscal year 25-26. So on the screen, everyone will see a QR code. If you would feel free to take out your phones and access that QR code, we would like you to take that survey and provide your feedback on the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department budget priorities and unmet needs. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I was going to say that ends our announcements and we are adjourned, but apparently not.
Before we adjourn, I do want to note one thing, given today's rain and the considerable painstaking efforts that people have made, particularly from the Antelope Valley, to be here today. I know Commissioner Callaway made his way here, but I also want to recognize those witnesses who took the time to come this extended way through treacherous conditions to be here and to bear witness. I want to recognize your particular efforts to be here today, and thank you for taking the time to do that, to come down from Antelope Valley to be here and to continue to bear witness, both to progress and accountability and to unmet needs and unsustained or unfulfilled justice. Thank you.
Okay. On that note, this special meeting of the Civilian Oversight Commission is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.